Welcome to the 50th program of Kaleidoscope. We are thrilled to be celebrating this milestone, especially since we started this program last year as an antidote to all the negatives that the pandemic brought on. We thought it fitting, therefore, to celebrate our 50th program with our first sponsor, Srilanka Life. And so we are here today, right by the sea in Uswatakeyawa at La Serena, the very first retirement resort in Sri Lanka, which comes under the umbrella of Srilanka Life. La Serena is the ideal place for those sunset years with all those luxurious extras of resort living. Beautifully designed residential units, a restaurant, a library, gym, pool and recreational areas with even a piano for some sing-along evenings. Ahead on the program are some movers and shakers who will tackle everything from investment choices to sustainable businesses on our Empower Capital News capsule. To abuse and exploitation on Srilanka Life Let's Talk and toxin-less cosmetics on Life in 60. Kaleidoscope is at La Serena today, a purpose-designed retirement resort on a sprawling 2.5 acres of land just 9 miles from Colombo in Uswatakeyawa. The ocean, swaying palms and beautifully landscaped gardens are very calming and relaxing, while the resort has great infrastructure meant to give all La Serena's residents some great rest and relaxation. So in the midst of this rather relaxed environment, we bring you our Empower Capital snapshot. The Sri Lankan rupee moved in a rather strange manner this week, with some unprecedented ups and downs seesawing between 191 and 209. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka's trade deficit contracted 6% from January to February. China's GDP grew an impressive 18.3% in the first quarter compared to the first quarter of 2020. Over 1.2 million vehicles used the expressway over the holiday period, posting a phenomenal 349 million rupees in revenue. Sri Lankan Kanya de Almeida is one of the 25 shortlisted for the 2021 Commonwealth Short Story Prize. Sri Lanka's Dilanka Isurukumara won a silver and a bronze medal at the Asian Weightlifting Championships held in Uzbekistan. And one of Claude Monet's water lilies is up for sale at $40 million. We'll be back with our Empower Capital News capsule.
With Empower Capital as your investment solutions partner, your investment allocation will be determined by financial intelligence and not emotion. Empower Capital, building relationships in for the long term.
Life begins at 60. That's how La Serena looks at retirement. 44 beautifully designed residential units for active retirees or for those wanting assisted living, with everyday comforts like Wi-Fi, cable, TV, air conditioning and even special support facilities, emergency alarms and medical facilities are all within a resort environment. It's like being on a permanent holiday. On our Empower Capital News capsule, we cover some very interesting topics today. Would a commercial bank or an investment bank be better placed to manage wealth? Chairman of Empower Capital, Anil Kure, popped into the Kaleidoscope studio to explain.
A commercial bank is where we all, or most of us, do our banking, where people will go and put a deposit in, and for keeping that money, the commercial bank will provide services. An investment bank is a specialized bank. It has an institution, financial institution, and there are investors, high net worth individuals, and the investment bank will build bridges. They will do the connection between these two entities. And it's a bespoke type of investment that we do for the client. If it is a financial institution, they will take more risks in their investment. Their risk appetite will be high, whereas an individual investor who is 60 plus will not be as good, their risk appetite will be quite low. So we need to get to know that individual and make a bespoke investment, have a good portfolio a well-balanced portfolio for that individual.
One other fact I gleaned from Anil Kure is that Empower Capital has a specialist team with a good knowledge of market trends, ideal ingredients to create customized solutions for individuals and institutional investors. After that spate of holidays, the stock market didn't begin the week on a happy note, losing considerably more than it gained in the last 2 weeks. By end of Thursday, the all share price index was down by 3.7% and the daily turnover averaged 3.1 billion rupees. Oil prices were trading slightly lower than the one-year highs they hit recently due to fears of a lockdown of one of the world's largest oil importers, India. WTI oil is currently trading at $61 per barrel. A weak US dollar and easing of US bond yields led to gold inching upwards from the recent one-year lows, and it's currently trading at $1,791 per ounce. Sustainability is the new mantra for businesses. So I popped into the Design Collective Sustainable Edit at Rosmead Place when they launched this week to check out their design space. The concept is for products to follow sustainable values. I asked co-founder and managing director of the Design Collective, Binu Vikramasinghe, how this business model actually works.
In terms of let's say the business model, what we are planning to do is we're trying to offer space to the designers, saying that even if they have a collection that is at our main store, they can basically do something here as well, which will be maybe a smaller, a curated collection, which will be more in line with the sustainable theme. And it doesn't have to be let's say 100% sustainable or anything like that, because I know for a fact that companies can't just change their whole business model in 2 seconds. They need time, and it'll only happen over a period of let's say maybe 5-10 years. But what we are giving them here is a space where they can do something small, even if they're talking about waste management, even if they're talking about let's say animal cruelty, or whatever they want to kind of bring through their collections, we are basically giving them the opportunity to kind of put something small here, start small, and then time to grow slowly and basically grow with us.
Your food may soon be delivered by self-driving robots. Pizzas are now being delivered by Neuro self-driving robots in Houston. Simply order online, key in the pin you get on your text alert, and voila, grab your pizza. Astra is yellow, Pfizer is green, and it's time for vaccine-themed treats. A Hungarian pastry shop is offering COVID-19 vaccine-themed sweet mousses as a light-hearted antidote to all that's going on. The only side effect? A smile on your face. So that's it on our Empower Capital News Capsule. We'll be back with Sashi Shafter on our Selinko Life. Let's talk.
With Selinko Life Pension Saver, Sri Lanka's premier retirement plan, start planning for your retirement today. Selinko Life, a relationship for life.
Abuse and exploitation is not new in communities, but are issues preferably not discussed, whether it's cyber abuse, verbal, emotional, sexual or physical abuse. But not just in women and children, but also men and transgender persons. The sad thing is most of these crimes are not reported because victims are fearful of re-victimization, stigma and being ostracized. Authorities too have little awareness on how to deal with victims. Armed with an LLM and a background in human rights, Sashi Shafter decided to take the bull by the horns. She founded Esther and has begun her first steps in dealing with abuse and exploitation, engaging with stakeholders from law enforcement and authorities to victims themselves to create awareness on how these issues should be dealt with, the rights of victims and the legal provisions in place. Here she is on Selinko Life. Let's talk. I first asked Sashi, how far beyond the physical aspect does abuse and exploitation go?
There are several different types of abuse and exploitation: mental, verbal, emotional, and these are sometimes not captured in the law. There is a disproportionate focus on physical abuse, but actually studies show that the other types of abuse can be just as, if not more, damaging in some cases.
So there's a huge gap between the victim and the access to law. Access to justice is almost a near impossibility. How can this gap be addressed?
There are several factors that limit the access to justice. A lack of awareness of the legal provisions which exist is one of them. So by creating awareness of the legal provisions which are there to protect people, access to justice might be increased.
So how do we create that awareness?
So through Esther, I'm planning to organize a variety of workshops and even training programs. One thing that I'm really passionate about is increasing sensitivity training amongst the authorities, because sometimes when victims do go to make a police complaint, they end up being re-victimized because of a lack of awareness on the issues which exist and how to deal with them in a sensitive way, which does not traumatize victims further.
So what is our law like when it actually comes to dealing with varied areas of abuse and exploitation? How progressive are we?
There is always room for improvement, not only here but everywhere, I think, and that's because the world adapts and changes so rapidly that the law has to usually change to keep up with these social and cultural changes. Sri Lanka does have a lot of good provisions which do protect our citizens, and I think in 2005 we unanimously passed an act to protect our citizens from domestic violence. That was a huge positive step. But with regard to that and other issues, there is still room, and there are gaps in the law which hopefully will be filled moving forward.
What about cyber abuse and exploitation? It's a new area, and are there enough laws here to cover that?
So that's an interesting one, because currently we do have provisions in our penal code which are used to combat cyber exploitation. But I think, and this is the general consensus amongst NGOs and activists, there is a need for more specific legislation to more effectively combat cybercrime and cyber harassment, cyberbullying, all of these things. So although right now we can use provisions of the penal code, more specific legislation would offer better protection for all victims.
So you mentioned re-victimization of the victim, that is in the process of the reporting process. However, we as citizens are also guilty of re-victimizing victims, because when it comes to communities, societies, we tend to be judgmental. How can we change that culture?
That's a very important question. I think that's where there's a huge gap between the law and the reality. And so many people are not even affected by changes in the law because of, like you said, cultural and social norms. Victim blaming is so common here, and that's where all these other facets of life come in, because even things like the media can be hugely influential in combating attitudes towards women, attitudes towards abuse, attitudes towards violence. And there are several studies, even in India, which have shown that there was a decrease in domestic violence after positive portrayals and portrayals of women being empowered in TV shows. So there are things which you wouldn't even think of. NGOs would think of only that being one sphere, but there are so many other ways that culture can be changed. But I think the most important thing is for everyone, regardless of their job, regardless of which sphere they operate in, to do their part in challenging these harmful social norms. So if you see someone who is being treated badly, say something, stand up for them, and kind of be bold enough to challenge that, because if we don't challenge that kind of behavior, then it will never change. And people who do behave in that way will be, if they're never challenged, they'll just continue, and they'll be empowered by your silence, actually.
Don't empower those who are violent or abusive with your silence. Be bold, take a stand, and speak out. Sage words indeed from Sashi Shafter, the founder of Esther, on Selinko Life. Let's talk.
With Selinko Life Pension Saver, Sri Lanka's premier retirement plan, start planning for a retirement today. Selinko Life, a relationship for life.
I'm really enjoying my time here at Selinko Life's La Serena, the perfect retirement resort that really espouses the axiom, life begins at 60. While on life in 60, let's look at Ceylon Life. That's what Ceylon V translates to. Our male Hugo, who realizes that we put in far too much toxic chemicals on ourselves every day, decided to use the unique combination of Sri Lankan plants and herbs in her Ceylon V soaps, bath and skincare products, balms and deodorants, all 100% natural.
enough of the toxic chemical ingredients in cosmetics that negatively impact our health. Let us become aware of the composition of what we buy, of the toxin with which our body is imbued. Let us be responsible and aware of our purchases. I have learned to know and use in my formulation everything that nature has made available to us. I am very demanding in the quality of the raw material that I use. I also pay a lot of attention, of course, to ecology and environment. In the choice of ingredients, these ecological and sustainable sectors allow me to support the underprivileged female population.
Do write in to us. Here's our email address. Also subscribe to the channel if you'd like to keep watching us, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We began this show in May last year when COVID was rampant. It seems like 1 year on, the trend is continuing. Don't take unnecessary risks. Use Amami hand sanitizer as much as you can, and keep washing your hands too. And as we leave you this week from the very relaxed surroundings of Selinko Life's La Serena, here's our Kaleidoscope takeaway. Nothing in the universe can stop you from letting go and starting over. Guy Finley.